Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of SUG Talks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. I'm delighted to be joined today by Cliff Saran, Technology Editor at Computer Weekly, and Gerren Maine, host of the SAPCHAT podcast. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And we're discussing this episode live here in the ICC in Birmingham at UKISUG Connect.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to be here.
I must admit, it's a year in the planning, and then you arrive, and 5 seconds later, you're leaving after 3 days.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, we're going to be discussing the keynotes that have just happened this morning at the Connect conference here in the ICC. Before we get into that, in honour of this year's SUGFest theme, which is a little sci-fi neon-related theme this evening, I'd like to ask you, what's your favourite sci-fi movie? While you have a think. Mine's not really a movie, it's a series. It's the X-Files. David Duchovny, Gillian Anderson. That's me. Cliff.
Oh, it's hard to say, actually. Oh, no. I think, there's Blade Runner.
Oh,
and I really
the original.
love the original Blade Runner. Director's cut.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, love that one.
Well, I would have to go with the original Star Wars trilogy, I think. I would keep with that for me. But the original trilogy, for me, just priceless.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
excellent.
Most excellent. But what was the one with the whale? Was that the fourth one, though?
I believe it was.
That's always one that sticks in my mind. That was the one in San Francisco, wasn't it? In the bay with the whale that was saved. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we digress now. Let's get back to the world of SAP and UKISUG Connect. So if I can just ask you both, start with you, Gerren, if I may. What stood out for you as perhaps the biggest takeaways from the keynote session this morning from Connor, SAP and Sandeep Twinings?
I think collectively, rather than there being something really specific about, one, I think it was the fact that we've seen more of that, and I know we'll come on to this, but it was more about the collegiate approach to actually achieving what customers are trying to achieve. And fundamentally, for me, it fell into two broad camps. It was one about AI and preparing for AI, but then secondly, it was that kind of big focus on extended maintenance where customers are lying, and still the bridge and the hurdle that customers have got to move to that. So it felt that there was that kind of big pull around looking to the future, but actually still trying to sort out the here and now.
Yeah, there was obviously still a few with maintenance running out at the end of this year and a number of products. I know we recently communicated quite a lot to our members on that. So it obviously is, I think Connor noted, it's going to be an interesting Christmas. Right. Cliff.
Well, it will be for those with a 2025 end-of-year deadline. Well, I would say that at least it wasn't all about artificial intelligence, because if it was, I would have probably not stayed until the end, because there was so much hype going on with AI. And I mean, I haven't asked SAP directly, but it's always interesting to ask the partners and the vendors, what would you be talking about if AI didn't exist? And it might be a truth, it's a valid question. There's a lot of innovation going on that's nothing to do with AI. And everything that Connor said about the transformation, about the data cleansing and cleaning and good data management, that all needs to be in place. AI is probably just the icing on the cake, but it's the icing on the cake that you can then, it's like a wedding cake. You then have that, then you can build another layer and another layer on top of that. So I think AI is important, but we shouldn't get, let it be the be all and end all of everything. AI is just something, and that was a takeaway. It is just something else that we need to think about. And as you said just a second ago, maintenance is a huge issue. All of that needs to be sorted out, the whole private cloud, public cloud, and customization. These were big themes that have been around for years and years. do as little customization as possible, because if you do too much customization, you can't then take advantage of the public cloud.
Yeah, very true. And was there anything, Cliff, that particularly resonated with you other than that? Or was there anything that maybe surprised you?
Well, it was... I don't know if I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't know if Connor actually said this, but it was more a feeling I got that the ROI on AI isn't about getting the low-hanging fruit. And if you think about it, I think what he did say is that these low-hanging fruit are not just a few months of easy projects. You're going to get the low-hanging fruit and then you're happy and you can prove a return on investment. It's that these things can take years. And we know that in the past, when it used to be called Enterprise Application Integration, remember EAI, not Enterprise AI, it took a long time. And sometimes these things never, ever got finished. It was just ongoing, getting the stuff in so that you could have a seamless flow. And I think these things are going to take a very, very long time to come true.
Thanks. Gerren, any?
Well, I think to echo that, really, I think I was surprised that there were still clients that were running out of support at the end of this fiscal year. I think, like all things, it's the challenge around that nirvana of getting to AI, and I call it nirvana because it was clear from the later conversation with Paul that a lot of work needs to be done in terms of data cleansing, making sure the foundations are correct. So if there was one kind of thing that I kept coming back to, it was foundations. It was the foundation of making sure, dare I say it, because it's a bit unpopular at the moment, that your core ER platform is fit for purpose. You know what you're trying to get from it. The data's clean, and then you can build from that. So, and then you've still got that kind of... It started with Connor at the beginning talking about a geopolitical environment, and every customer that I speak to the moment say, you know, we started in 2020, SAP announced the extension of the deadline, and then 2 months later we had COVID. We've had to deal with COVID. We've then dealt with the Ukrainian crisis and the price inflation as a result of energy prices. We've come out of that. We've then got issues around tariffs, and how that's been played out. So it's been a really difficult 5 years. So, you know, when all's said and done, whenever we talk about AI, whenever we talk about moving to S4, a budget has to be approved, it has to be got, and the timing needs to be clearly defined. And I think that's the challenge, finding that period of time when there's some kind of consistency in the market that allows organisations to make the move.
I'd like to add, though, I think that with all those changes you've mentioned, I think change is the new normal.
Yeah.
And businesses, you can't just have a one-shot project. And I think this must have started, you know, when we moved from waterfall to agile. But no one thought, well, agile, that would be it. You know, that would be one project and you're very agile about the project. But now you have to be agile about everything because the market are changing so quickly. You know, during the keynote, we were talking about the budget, weren't we? That has profound changes on how businesses run. So businesses need to adapt very, very quickly, and that you can't just fix the project and say it's going to. Well, now we're done. Now we move on to the next project because what you've just written, what you've just encoded, might have changed, and the business rules might need changing.
Yeah, and you both mentioned that obviously the timelines, the maintenance timelines and looming deadlines that Connor highlighted, and obviously SAP reinforced the need for cloud transformation and modernisation, as of course it would. Do you feel that organisations fully appreciate the need to move now?
I think there is a challenge because if organisations, you know, initially bought into S/4HANA, they would have invested in that product, moved off ECC, and now they're having to change again to go into the SAP cloud. Now, you know, it's a logical thing to do, but it's a hard sell into the business to say this is what we have to do. We're on this SAP roadmap. No, you shouldn't be on your SAP roadmap. You should be on your roadmap, and hopefully that's aligned with SAP. And I think the challenge is if SAP is pushing too fast to move its customers into the public cloud, there'll be some who, just like we see with ECC, who will push back and say we can't go this fast.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? And I think you hit the nail on the head there for me. The customer's got to move at their pace and in the route that is best for their organisation. And I suppose this is where partners come in to support customers on that and work with them. So, Gerren, anything from you in that regard?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the platform is the enabler. I think we have to take a step back and say, well, if SAP hadn't come out with S4 and have the vision, we'd all be saying, well, that's terrible, where's the innovation? So I kind of expect SAP to be really pushing on that. I think the momentum is building in the marketplace that will bring everyone's attention to the fact that deadline is running out. So whether they like it or not, they're going to be forced into that direction. I think what's interesting is, I think we said this time last year, if SAP are really going to push on AI, for example, they're going to need to show use cases. They're going to need to be able to demonstrate the value and how quickly the value can be achieved. And I think personally, to start with, customers are going to be looking for quick fixes. If I do this, how can I get a real return very, very quickly? That has real business value. So I was quite pleased to hear that, they're clearly doing a lot around experience workshops, and you can start to see that enablement, that momentum building. And I thought it was quite nice as well overall, that the number of partners, the kind of overall theme of we need customers, we need partners, we need SAP all working together. And I think you said yesterday that how many more exhibitors are there this year? I mean...
Yeah, I think we've got extra 10 exhibitors over what we had last year. So we've got 95 exhibitors in the hall this year.
So you get a sense. So I was talking with a colleague yesterday, one of the more experienced colleagues alongside myself, if we put it that way, saying that we were walking around a conference hall maybe 15 years ago, there would be fewer but big organisations, one-stop shops. Now you can see, just walking around the conference hall, there are hundreds of partners in the ecosystem, all doing very, very bespoke things, really adding value. And it's that collaboration between partners and SAP and customers to achieve the value. And I think that genuinely came out overall as an overall theme. And I think that's going to be really, really important. And it's going to get more important for customers on how they orchestrate those partners together and how they work together with SAP and themselves to meet the needs of their programs.
I think that is crucial. It certainly has been for me, and I've had a number of conversations about this. And it's not all about the real big boys coming in with huge teams, whatever. There's so many top quality niche providers in the SAP world that working together, and I think that's a key element, is the partners collaborating together. And it's something that we want to certainly promote, because I think it adds so much value to the customer, and that at the end is what everybody should be looking for.
And I think that came out during the keynotes today. I also thought that there was a change in format and structure of the keynotes, and I thought that lended itself really, really well. That question and answer session, the immediate response back from the audience in terms of key questions and understanding where people were on their journeys in the audience, that was quite insightful as well. And that kind of reinforced for me what was actually happening. There was a kind of a wider partner ecosystem, but everyone kind of focused on a common goal.
No, it's really interesting, the interactive surveys. Just as a journalist, looking at this is not just survey data that's been done in the past. This is live. Look at these people. This is their pain point. And it's surprising how many people are going to have a busy Christmas this year because because of the deadline, right?
Yeah, very much so. And on the format, Gerren, I thought Piers did exceptionally well as a host. And I mean, I suppose from one way, there's no route back for me now. I did 1 year last year, I got sacked, we brought in a professional, and that's it. I'm out of that job.
Look at your flourishing career as a podcast presenter.
Yeah, we'll have to just secure that string to the bow before somebody else comes in.
Yeah.
So back to the hype of your potentially not favourite subject, Cliff, and AI. And, we talk about the kind of the gap between ambition and practical implementation. And I think also you've got the hype that's driven from the vendors, but also perhaps the board of the customer organisation. Ooh, I can save 37.4%. I've just read in this, wherever, go away and implement that AI and give me that money back in the organisation. And Gerren, you already said it's a multi-year process. It's a long process. So why do you think organisations are perhaps find it difficult to cut through the hype?
There's things being sold at the executive level that, show the 37.5%. And then there's the reality, if you gain 37.5% efficiency, what are my people going to do? Now, I've written a blog about this. I've written several blogs, and I ask questions about this all the time.
Well, we'll include a link to that.
Yeah, well, you can if you want. Self-promotion here. Here's a little thought experiment. So imagine it's Friday afternoon, and the AI agent has done all of the easy invoice processing for you, leaving you with 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, a stack load of the ones it could not process automatically. How happy are you going to feel that you've now got all of this difficult work to do? And if you slow down and if you say, "Well, I'll do it on Monday morning," then the AI will be left behind, And I don't think this may seem a bit weird and a bit strange, but we all know why the QWERTY keyboard was invented, right? It was invented to ensure that mechanical keyboards didn't break because the typists were working too fast. And perhaps we need a rethink or a reset of how AI systems should be used, because people will work at a certain pace. No matter how super efficient the AI is, people can only do a certain amount of work. It doesn't mean that they'll be doing the more creative work or doing all the hard tasks that the AI can't possibly handle. And I think there's not enough of a discussion on that. Now, this is where the gap exists, I think, between what the executives are being sold and what can actually be achieved. The productivity gap. People will only be able to do so much. The AI will only be able to do so much. And I don't think the two kind of fit together very well.
I think somebody said today that made the point that if you ask ChatGPT something, you get a response. It's not necessarily a defined or the correct response. So I think there's going to be a lot of focus. I personally think that the AI will be deployed. It will start as assisting in tasks and accelerating those tasks, and then gradually, over a period of time, and that time period I think could be quite considerable. But then we'll start to see it then be becoming more autonomous. The question I often pose myself and others is that how much of the stuff being branded AI at the moment is just automation, really.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, I think
robotic process automation. Where does that end in AI?
Yeah, exactly.
Kick in?
We were matching purchase orders a long time ago, but I appreciate AI takes it much further. So I think that's some of the answers around that. Having said that, though, you do speak to clients who are really keen to have anything AI tagged because they have defined budgets for AI that they can use. So there's a bit of a game going on internally as well with how organisations allocate their budgets and how they proceed. And maybe there's some work needs to be done there to understand how does that make a coherent strategy from an organisation's point of view. I think it's going to be a challenging few years, but I do think organisations do need to have a kind of defined strategy around it. I think they'll need to use their partners in that, but they'll need to use SAP as well. And it was heartening to hear they've got value engineers here at the moment. They were doing those workshops in Clockhouse as well. So you could see, I think last year I was saying, I'd like to see SAP providing the support and guidance. And it's clear that is beginning to happen. And frankly, SAP need those clients to be on that journey as well. So, it's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think.
Yeah, excellent.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UKISUG membership with those who don't know about us? The UKISUG referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Just shifting focus a little, if I may, and cloud adoption challenges were mentioned by everybody on stage. And so whether this is around customization, which we talked about earlier, data complexity, which we talked about earlier, security or cost, which of these do you think remains the biggest blocker for users today?
Well, the most common that comes up in the conversation I have is around security, definitely. Depending on the organisation, clearly, that's much higher in someone's profile than others. But I think there's been a lot of focus recently and high-profile issues around security. So it was nice to see the announcement of the sovereign cloud, and I think that will continue to play. I think the other thing that I would flag, and it occurred to me, and there was a couple of whispers, not many, but if you saw the timeline, from Layla, you would see that RISE was announced in 2021. There are customers now that are coming up to renegotiate their contracts, and I think some of those customers will get a bit of a shock when they see the pricing. Now, we all know pricing's increased, so this is not a comment on the pricing of RISE per se, but I wonder whether you're going to start to see clients then realising that they are effectively locked in, and that there's the price with that. Now, I think there'll be some work done to make it easier for perhaps them to move around. But realistically, once you're on a RISE platform, a cloud platform, and you've chosen what flavour of that is going to be, it's not an easy job to kind of move around there. So I think some of the financial realities of cloud will start to raise their head as we see those renewals come on board as well.
I mean, looking at the cost increases, and this is with any software company, any cloud provider, and you look at how much money is being put into building AI acceleration in the data centers. They've got to make their money back somehow. I think, unfortunately, it is the end customers, the buyers of these IT systems, that end up having to pay that, because it won't be a free service. I mean, ChatGPT is not free, right? There's a huge amount of GPUs running in the cloud to make it happen, and they want their money back. Eventually, they'll want their money back. And it's the same with all of these enterprise software companies. Now, I think the challenge for SAP is that it has to make that sort of decision about how you increase the prices in a way that reflects how its customers are moving. One of the things, we haven't really talked about this because licensing is changing. And I spoke to Accenture about a month or two ago about value-based licensing, because AI isn't really about volume pricing. It's about usage, but not even about usage. It's about how it's being used to deliver value. And maybe there is going to be a shift where businesses start negotiating with the software providers and the partners in a way that makes it possible to deliver an ROI that both parties see a return.
Yeah, interesting. It certainly is that working together, get that ROI, get that result moving forward. Do you feel that, obviously a lot of the SAP AI related stuff quite reliant on BTP, and we already mentioned earlier the customization's clean core. Do you feel customers are gaining a clear understanding of a clean core and the role BTP can play?
So, as somebody who's working in the whole clean core space as well, I think clean core has been one of those kind of overhyped, overused phrases that's come back to bite heavily. I think, I would say that you probably need to look at clean core in a kind of more holistic way, which is that it's a journey, okay? And we heard some great examples today. Twinings say that they only have now 2 customisation, a lot built on BTP. Fundamentally, though, at its heart, you've got an organisation potentially got 30, 40 years worth of customisations. And I typically find we get maybe 40% of that on average. It varies. It is obsolete, and there's no archiving or taking away, and that's technical debt that can be removed. So moving customers to a point where they start to look at their customizations and start to clean that up. I would argue in preparation for a move to S4, frankly, where you start to actually understand what you've got and then start to look at, architecturally, which are more tightly or loosely coupled to the core. If they're loosely coupled, then they're probably good candidates for BTP. So I would argue that would be all part of that journey. I think customers do have more clarity around that. There was, without getting too nerdy, there was a white paper by SAP in August of this year, which if you want to download it, feel free. But effectively what it did, it kind of moved away from a kind of classification I had before to an A, B, C, D classification where D is bad, and you kind of move there. And I think that moved
like
customers.
Energy usage.
Yeah, very similar. D is bad, by the way. But, so you can start to see that customers can move on a journey. But there are things, to get to that nirvana that aren't quite there yet either. The number of CDS views being created are still growing. The number of whitelisted APIs is still very, very low. So it's not a very simplistic thing. I mean, everyone says we want to get down to 0 customizations and the world's fantastic. Frankly, there are a lot of organisations out there who won't be able to do that. And even SAP in their latest, diagrams and material will show still residual customisation sat in the core where they absolutely need to be. So I think it's evolving. I think customers have got a greater understanding of clean core, that's for sure. But it still leaves them with when do I do it? How do I do it? And actually, where does it come in the programme?
Cliff, from your conversations, are you seeing more awareness out there?
It's a difficult one. I can see that there's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of business processes that have been around for years. I mean, you think about it. Well, as you know, SAP came along because of a Y2K issue that people had enterprise software running on mainframes and they needed a better solution, right? And that's how it all began. And now, some of those business processes are definitely legacy, but some of them may still be valid. And, there is a case for going through those ones that are valid today and saying, well, what do we do with them? Perhaps maybe not customize the core anymore, take them out of the core, find possibly a third-party provider, dare I say, who can encapsulate that functionality for you. I don't know if that exists, but if it does, then it's a solution, right? So you keep your core clean, and then you have the stuff that can't be customized. That is customized, but just has to run. It just has to run because you need it, separate from the clean system.
Thank you. And one of the themes I think that came across all of the keynotes is quite strong on collaboration, and we've already talked about collaboration between the partners, but they're talking about business, IT, and within transformation teams internally, as highlighted by Sandeep on the Twinings journey. And so why do you feel this has become so critical now?
Well, I was having a conversation last night with somebody that had been around equally long, and we were talking about, what makes a successful transformation and what doesn't. And we were lamenting the fact that despite the fact that technology has moved on, SAP has moved on, some of the challenges for organisations today remain identical as they did 30 years ago. And some of the reasons why transformations fail are identical. And it's not about the software, frankly. It's that thing that you saw from Twinings at the beginning. I think the the slide said, what is our why? And I think having a very clear view at the outset about what is your strategy, what do you want to achieve by this program, therefore, how does that relate to scope and testing and training, and all of that comes to a defined output. But more importantly, what role is everyone playing in that? It's very basic stuff, but it's often not done very well at all. And so, typically where you see these programs fail, or you see, even budget approvals at board level, I see multiple, this year particularly, multiple board approvals that probably would have just gone through easily, have been kicked out. And they haven't been kicked out and said, no, we're not doing this. It's just, we need more information. We're not really sure about this. So I think for me, it reinforced that overall collaboration, but at the start of it is a very clear understanding about what is it we want to achieve, how and why.
Thank you. Really interesting. I thought when you were starting, I thought we were going into a Simon Sinek kind of like little lecture there on starting with why. But it is so vitally important. We have to understand why we're getting into something to understand how we're going to be successful at the end of it and how.
I do remember, if you indulge me in a little story, but when I was starting off my project management career, back in the day when we didn't really have offshoring at all, I was kind of assigned, so as a junior project manager with a very senior project manager, we went into a client and he'd printed the contract off and said, we had 11 stakeholders at the kickoff, and he started off by putting that contract on the table, and he said, no, I'd like to start by asking each one of you what you believe this contract is going to deliver you in terms of an application and the outcome, and about 8 different answers. And so he made the point, if I deliver to that contract, to the letter, I'm going to have 8 people in here very upset and believe that the project has failed. And it was fundamental in my understanding at that point. It's really important that even when an organisation believes they know what they want, does the whole organisation, the whole team understand that? And that's typically where things tend to go wrong. And I was heartened that we seem to be a little bit more mature now in understanding that everyone's got a role to play. But at its very, very top of the pyramid is that kind of understanding of what do we want to achieve and how are we going to do it.
Excellent. And alignment, crucial.
Yeah.
Okay, I suppose we're coming towards a close now. Couple of questions left, if I may. Obviously, we heard SAP outline their strategy in the UK and Ireland, customer successes, and also the innovation roadmap. Have you any thoughts on the direction SAP's taken with technology, AI, cloud services, or is it continuing on the path already mapped out previously?
I think you just have to look at the whole industry, and if SAP was not doing this, you'd say, why aren't they doing this? The important thing that everyone has to bear in mind is that they have to take their customers along with them. And now, so it's good to see the roadmap, and it's but people move at a different pace. So as long as and I got the feeling that maybe there's room to manoeuvre a little bit. So SAP definitely has to say, and it's a public company, it has to say this is where we're going to be. And some of its customers will move a lot quicker than others. I think it's positive to see the direction of travel. I sort of worry if this sort of CIOs in businesses are going to be a bit worried about that. If it's a bit too fast, or for some it may be a bit too slow. So it's hard to know how things will evolve over the next few years. Because this is I guess quite an open question. Is it an AI bubble? Or is AI just going to be how enterprise software is now sold? And actually, I like the point that was made earlier around the fact that, maybe it's not about AI washing, but, there's an AI budget, right? And there's not certain areas of IT have their budgets cut. So if the project has AI in it, it's more likely to get funding.
Very true. And like we mentioned earlier, AI, automation is AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, there were a couple of things that I picked up, and I completely agree, right? So there was a lot of focus on AI. You'd expect there to be, frankly, you know. If they weren't, we'd probably say, well, they weren't really doing their job. There were a couple of things I picked up on, though. You know, you can't ignore the fact that they have understood the value of business data and having a common set of themes. I was talking about SAP data and, you know, non-SAP data. I thought that was important. So there's an understanding clearly and a strategy about making sure customers are having that. There was also a side mention around clean core on toolchain. And that's becoming very, very important with SAP. So you can see that they're adopting a strategy that's starting to pull the various tools that allow organisations to make that transformation less painless. So I do think behind it, although it wasn't there in shiny lights flashing, that there is actually an understanding and a kind of a strategy to help customers along that journey and make sure that is as seamless, both the transformation to S4, but then also the move into AI. And it's going to be quite interesting, I think.
That integrated tool chain is an interesting point because obviously you've got all of these tools to help with transforming. That business transformation management all sits under, helps the customers move along that path. And it was an interesting comment Connor made on a recent podcast when we were kind of wrapping up Sapphire. And, you know, his point of view is a very interesting one, maybe not one SAP wants to hear too much, but give those solutions to customers to help them on the journey, because it will really help the customer on the journey and they'll go on that journey with you.
I don't disagree. I think if you know, if you looked at the maybe if you went to the market valuation, some of those toolchain companies, and then you look at the value to SAP of speeding up and minimising the impact of those transformations, I think the value would stack up for SAP going out there and making some acquisitions and embedding that and making it part of the overall package. I definitely think there's going to be more focus on that. And I think, you know, it's not unreasonable for customers to say, why wouldn't you provide tools or enable tools that help us on that journey? So I think we're probably going to see more around that, frankly.
Yeah. So, as we come to a close, said I only had a couple of questions left, and the final one is, what else are you looking forward to, I suppose, in the rest of Connect, Cliff?
Well, I've got a couple of interviews to do, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to writing the story about the event yet, but it's coming together quite well. I've got quite a few things to cover, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to a good event and to the SUGFest this evening, which sounds very exciting. Some free beer and food, definitely.
What's not to love?
Yes.
Gerren?
Well, I have some really good customer meetings and partner meetings lined up, so lots of really good stuff. There's some breakout sessions I want to go to enhance my knowledge, and then of course SUGFest. You know, what event wouldn't be complete with SUGFest? So it's great as you get older and more experienced with this to actually walk around the floor on the Tuesday morning and see those that have overdone it. It's always take great delight seeing those, you know, lurking in the corners.
Exactly. Hence why we have breakfast buns coming in the morning, just to get everybody moving and reinvigorated for the day. But gentlemen, Cliff, Gerren, thank you. Thank you so much, time, for your insights and for your time given in what is probably a very busy event for you both. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay connected.